Okay, so that completes part one, and that's the major construction done. Pretty much everything is glued on that can be at this stage. I haven't gone round and done the filler work, and obviously I've got to get into primer, but I class that more as painting stage, so that's where I'm going to leave that as far as this build's concerned. So, you know, as a testament to the kit and it going together, I mean, this has taken me really on and off through evenings, only about a week, I think. Not too long, maybe a week and a half, I suppose. And possibly a couple of Sundays where I've had a bit more time to hit it, but it's mostly evenings. And that should tell you and go to show that just how good the fit is. So there's not really been any major problems with any of the components coming together. Most of the time was spent in the cockpit, obviously, but again, without super detailing that or anything. I think it was a week ago I was actually putting on the decals for the instrument panel. So we'll say probably a week in the cockpit, and then, you know, a few hours after that. So everything, hopefully you've seen in the video that it pretty much snaps together. It's surprising. I've built the Trumpeter Stuka in 1/32 scale, and that was a little bit clunky. I've seen online that you know, there's numerous opinions on how they go together, but this one certainly all the effort's gone into making sure the fit is nice and doesn't give you many problems. So the wing root join was extremely good, as you saw in the video. When you lifted the wings up, you got the correct dihedral, and the line pretty much was eliminated at the wing root, so that was good. Fuselage join as well, tiny bit of misalignment, I guess, at the back here, which was easily rectified. I have got quite a bit of filler here on the top of the cowling because I've tried to sand that down to try and get this little hump out that they've moulded in, and I've gone down as far as I'd really like to be honest. But yeah, I mean, everything else went together without issue. The whole tailplane section went on really well. Snapped in. I mean, I probably need a little bit of water-based putty, so perfect plastic putty in this case, just to run along the seam there. But that's really more just to unify the gap as opposed to anything else. And I've just got the clear parts off as well and test fitted, and these again fit like the rest of the kit. So the windscreen actually pops in, so it springs out. It's a very tight fit. In fact, that you got to sort of hold it in there. Which doesn't sound like it's a good fit at all, but it makes sense if you try putting it in. It sort of springs out, so it's a overly tight fit, I guess. And I'm going to have this one in the closed position, and it's a nice join there, just sort of test fitting, holding the two down. It's a good solid join across the two meeting points, so that's good. Now we'll get those clear parts out of the way for the minute, so I don't damage them. You may notice that the gun sight has broken off in handling, which is no surprise, but that's no problem. I've just kept those parts separate. So on the underside we've got quite a lot of detail, and it's actually featured mostly here, which is where the flaps open, and it shows you all of the struggling for the word again here, but the sort of bracing that's going in there, and that's all photo etch, and that locks in very nicely. Just to prove the point, there's actually one bit that I haven't glued, I don't think, and it's just held itself in there, if you can see. So it's very good joins again, and that all comes together with the actual flaps that join on, which we've got here, and they just rest on these plastic pins that are sticking up here, which have got a ball on the end that fits into a circular impression on this part, and it just kind of rests, so you use the resting on there as a guide and then fix it to the actual part of the wing, and that gives you the right kind of angle. And it's very thoughtful that you even get a piece just to go in the end there as well, which I missed off the first time I was doing it, so I was quite pleased to see that. That was a very clever way of filling the gap there, so it unifies the whole thing. The wheel bays are again very cleverly thought out. That's a whole section you glue in, and that goes in no problem. You've got the bulbous joints here that go over the sort of wing root and finish off the front part of the undercarriage section. That goes in as a separate section, and that just snaps in as well, which is again extremely well thought out. And all in all, it's very impressive. I can't see there being any problem with the undercarriage either, because these are just slightly pressed in. I didn't want to go the whole way because I'm worried I won't be able to get them out. But it's very cleverly done. If I just pop this one out, as you can see, this is hardly pressed in, and it's a very tight fit. So you've got this sort of flange that goes in, and you've got the pin as well. This whole bit goes in the hole, and this is where it's meant to sit flush here. So you've got a lot of purchase inside there for it to hold on. So I'm very happy with the way that's going together, and I'm pretty certain we won't get any problems with that. And really, I mean, you can see again by the lack of filler on here, there's actually none under here apart from a few small bits just where these pieces fit in. So that's a separate part joining the fuselage, and that's a bit that slots in, so that did have issues. But where the whole wing join goes and this bit slots into the fuselage, it was extremely well done. There was a small gap back here where I used just a bit of super glue because I couldn't get that to close up, but the rest of it is pretty much just glue, just the Tamiya extra thin. Now here, hopefully you'll be able to see where I've just taken a little bit of the ridge out. There is still quite a sweep on the top of the cowling, but it is quite a bit better, I think. Just try and get the shadow out of the way. So it was a lot worse. There isn't a ton of material there to work with, so what I've done is just sanded between, I'd sort of use this as the mark, so it was between here and there is where I concentrated the sanding, using parts where the exhausts go as a guide, and then leaving that, which is what actually comes in the kit, and just trying to get it to go up to a point and then straight back to the fuselage. And we did have a sort of hump between here and there, so it kind of goes up and down. You can still see it slightly, but I think it's vastly improved by sanding that back. You could possibly go further, that would be up to you. I'm happy with how far I've gone, and I think that's good enough. So lastly is just the propeller, and I think I've pretty much got that sorted. We've got a seam line running down between the propeller blades. It was still showing when I added a bit of primer to it earlier in the build, so I've gone over that again. I think that's pretty good. I've rescribed the panel line around the higher up on the nose cone, and I do have to do some rescribing across the rest of the airframe, so I'll be doing that just in between sort of this part and the next part. I'll probably show a little bit of that and then head straight into the primer. Probably going to leave it and just do the re-riveting over the primer, because I mean scribing's been done a million times before, and I've got nothing new to show you. The prop goes in very nicely, so it holds in there without any issue. There's quite a lot of friction in there holding it in when you get it in past that second bit, and it gives that nice natural sort of gap, so it's going to be glued like that. So that's quite a tight line there, and it looks very natural to me, so I'm happy with that. I think it's a great idea regarding the exhausts, keeping those separate, and I've actually managed to keep them on the sprue here for spraying, so they can all be sprayed up and then nipped off, and then where they're actually nipped from is the glue point, so that just needs a little bit of sanding. And I have checked that one's obviously come off of here, because I had to check it, and it doesn't look like it will cause any problem, so managed to keep all that weathering away from the actual fuselage. There are quite a few bits to keep separate here, so we've got the window panes that go, well actually it's better with a bit of plastic there, the window panes that are going on the just behind the cockpit. So they obviously want to stay separate and be painted up and put on right at the end. There is a few more glass parts, there's quite a lot of lights, and a few clear panels that need to go here and there. So again, I'll keep them off to the build or mask them up if they need a little bit of colour around the edge. As I've shown you, I've got the exhausts on the sprue, which is the very best way of doing that, I think. Then we've got the flaps. so they're best off left loose. So we're going to be doing azure blue, so we obviously paint that one side, then the interior green the other. It wasn't an option in the kit instructions, but it is all there in the kit. So I've used the drop tank as I'm doing a North Africa aircraft, and they seem to have used them, so it's just the same for the bomb, but you need to use, which is, the bomb is given in the instructions, but you need to use some slightly different fixings that just join on. But again, there's nothing to worry about. I just double checked these that it was those, and that is correct. The rubber tyres can be a little bit of a pain, but just sanding those around with some various grits, got the seam that was running around the middle and just kind of took them down a notch. I don't really paint these because it doesn't always stick to them very well, so I'll do a bit more sanding and working on those before they actually join the final build. And then we've got the wheels and all of the doors for the undercarriage left separate, so it's much easier to paint all of that up and then add it on at the end of the build. And that brings us to an end. So I hope you've enjoyed this first part of this build, and if you like what you've seen, stay tuned, because obviously build part 2 will be coming very shortly, which will show the painting and the finishing off and the decaling that we've got. We've got a different set of decals to go on this to turn it into a North African scheme. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video, if there's any improvements or anything that you want to put down there. I always read the comments. Give the video a like, and I'll see you in the next video.